Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So on this video today, I am going to be doing a bit of a Q&A or answering your questions. I haven't done one of these videos in about 6 months, so I thought it was high time that I did another one because I often don't have time to go through individual comments and respond to them. So I'm just going to go through the last several comments on my channel where people are asking questions about this condition and just answer them as best as I can. And hopefully you'll find this helpful because I'm assuming that the questions that other people have, you might have as well. So before I get into it, I just wanted to mention that I am doing one-on-one coaching. I have a free 15-minute consultation, 30-minute call, 60-minute call, and I offer them at lower rates than other places online. I've also put together 4-session packages for people who might want to meet a little bit more regularly, and that is at a further discounted rate. I will put the link to my online booking calendar in the description of this video, as well as a link to my website if you're interested in learning more about my story, my bio. You can check it out there. You can also book sessions through my website, and I have other videos on this channel, fairly long videos that go into detail on my story and all of the different drugs I took and my journey through horrific withdrawal and adverse reactions from benzos, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and the like. So I will get into the video now. So responding to your comments or answering your questions. So I'm just going to go in order. So the first one is, what if you can't feel pleasure and have extreme depression along with terror? I could go on, but it's difficult, especially when you can't watch TV or listen to music, agoraphobic, monophobic. This has ruined my life and I'm not even done tapering this poison. Also extremely weak and in severe pain. So first of all, I'm really sorry for all of your struggles and your suffering. I definitely can relate a lot to what you're going through. So this is a little bit of a two-part question. So the first part is when you can't feel pleasure and have extreme depression. So I didn't feel this as much as I did the other symptoms such as terror, intrusive thoughts, hallucinations, extreme anxiety, insomnia, those types of things. But from talking to other people and sort of learning a lot about this situation over the past 6 years, what I've learned is that a lot of the times you have to sort of go through the motions before you can feel any effect. And even then, I always divide things into 3 sections. So it kind of goes acute, subacute, and then protracted if you end up there. Not everyone ends up protracted. And I think there's different things that are more effective in certain stages than others. And as far as it sounds like, I mean, this person is tapering, so they're obviously going to be in some of the more acute phases, I guess, depending on how the tapering is going. But the can't feel pleasure in the depression, again, a lot of times you're just going through the motions. So I tell people all the time, there's no magic bullet. There's nothing where you can just take something or do one thing and your symptoms are going to go away. Unfortunately, that's not how this journey typically goes. So, but I do believe that little things over a long period of time do add up. So if I read, there is a fairly well-known akathisia blog online, and they talk about how in every way, pretty much, it was impossible to do things like leave the room, stop pacing, even go to the bathroom properly. But as things sort of started to lighten up a little bit, then doing things that are sort of known to increase the positive chemicals in the brain. So going for walks, trying to socialize, whether that's in person, on the phone, online, however it is most comfortable for you. And all of these things are relative, obviously. Just doing things, I guess, that you know or that are known to increase endorphins and positive chemicals in the brain. Again, a lot of times you're just going through the motions. So one thing I encourage people all the time to do is nurture and stretch, meaning you're nurturing your nervous system as much as possible with everything, you put in and on your body, what you expose yourself to. So you're taking the best possible care of yourself that you can. But then as soon as you get, or maybe not as soon as, but at some point when you get some space from your symptoms, whether they've just lessened over time or whether you're having the windows and waves pattern and you're in a window, even sometimes if you're in a wave, you want to, 95% of the time nurture your nervous system, but then the other 5 or 10%, you're stretching yourself. You're not pushing yourself hardcore. I know that can be really tempting when you start to feel better, but you're just sort of stretching yourself, because I think a really important part of this is teaching your subconscious and your limbic system, so that fight or flight part of your nervous system, that it's safe again, because you go into a complete raw exposed nerve state. And so you have to teach yourself, I think, you don't have to, but I think it can be really helpful to teach your nervous system on a subconscious level or maybe I shouldn't say you don't have to, because I think naturally a lot of the symptoms dissipate over time, but there are things that you can sort of help it along with once you get a little bit more into a subacute phase that are teaching your limbic system that it's safe again. So doing things that again increase those positive brain chemicals, getting out into the sunshine, walking, spending time with people with healthy nervous systems in whatever capacity you can at this whatever stage you're in. So that's kind of what and keep in mind that a lot of people, or most people, or everyone who has those anhedonic symptoms and the lack of feeling pleasure, eventually, you get your emotions, your positive emotions back. So always keep that in mind and keep that hope alive, because this is just a state that your brain is in right now, but that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way forever. So always holding on to hope in the process. Terror, again, it's the same type of thing. There isn't a lot that you can do, in my experience, when you're in the acute phase, because you really are in survival. You're in complete survival. And so everything that your body and mind is focusing on is keeping you alive. So in those times, really, I say the best two things you can do or have are hope and support. And so holding on to hope, staying off the forums, unless you're only going on to read the success stories, which I think a lot of people are not doing, and it's not your fault. It's just, you're trying to fix what's going on. But clinging on to the hope and also the support. So I've shared before that I believe there's 3 levels of support that are optimal, not necessary, but optimal in this process. The first one is real life support, the people that are physically around you that can make you feel safe in the moments that you're melting down, even if that's all day. I know that there's only so much they can do, but if they can try to provide a sense of safety, that's what a lot of people need, especially since internally they're not feeling any safety. So if they can get some of that from outside in the form of real life support, that's the first level. The second one is online support in the form of healing buddies. And the third one is online support as far as like coaches or people who have healed. So I think those are really, all of them are important for different reasons. The physical, obviously the presence of safety, and then healing buddies, so you can commiserate with people going through it at the same time as you, and then people who have recovered, either mentors or coaches or success stories that you can talk to one-on-one, because that keeps the hope alive. So I hope that answered that question. I understand a lot of people that I talk to are unable to watch TV, listen to music, be alone, go out. But again, these are temporary things, and you're trying to get through the acute stage by how I just mentioned, and then getting more into that subacute where you have some space from your symptoms, and then you can sort of start. It is a rebuild, so you're adding things in to your daily routine, again, that contribute to general health and well-being, that boost endorphins, boost the positive chemicals in the brain. I'm not talking about like hardcore detoxing or healing the gut using like extreme measures. I'm not talking about that right now. That could be something you explore down the line. And a question I get a lot is, well, I found out that I have suboptimal vitamins and minerals, or I have low iron, or I have, my progesterone is too low, and people ask my opinion on that. And my own opinion is that, again, I always want to say, like, these are my opinions based on my personal experience in my own recovery and the hundreds of people I've talked to and the people that I coach. So I say that if you have those problems or those questions, again, I don't think that, all of a sudden just correcting your hormones is going to fix you, or getting your irons to an optimal level will fix you. I think those are things worth exploring further down the line, because a lot of people's experiences when they're taking supplements, minerals, vitamins, whatever it might be, is jacking up their system, whether they're reacting to the fillers or whatever, the active ingredients. I think it's best to explore those things further down the line when you are, again, having space from your symptoms. And I don't personally believe that correcting those things when you're in an acute phase is going to fix you. It's this overarching autonomic nervous system dysfunction created from the drugs, the cessation of them, or the adverse reactions. And those other things, I think, are just a very small part of maybe what's going on that you should explore further down the road. That's my own personal opinion. So hopefully that answers it. I tend to talk a lot, so I apologize if that was a long answer. I'll go to the next one. So some of them are just comments and other ones are questions. The next one is, can benzyl benzi, I'm not sure. I think it's benzol or benzoyl. I'm not sure. Alcohol in my toothpaste aggravate the withdrawal symptoms. I am 6 months off benzos and suffering badly. So I've talked about this in other videos where absolutely I do believe that reactions happen because your nervous system is so hypersensitized, but there can be a danger in always trying to, I think if you have a very immediate reaction to something and or it happens consistently with that same item, then I would say, yeah, you might be reacting to something in it, and then you should maybe consider an alternative. But I think if every time you have a reaction, even if it's delayed or rather than reaction, I'd like to say wave. Like if you go into a wave after you do something, it can become dangerous to always try to be tying it to something, because what can happen with that is you end up perpetuating the fear response that you're already in by being like, well, now I have to be afraid of corn, and now I have to be afraid of bacon, and now I have to be afraid of going outside, and I have to be afraid of water. And I think it can make your world very small, and I've seen that really contribute to people's level of despair. And so obviously you don't want to be doing that, and that can be a dangerous road. So again, unless you're having a very immediate reaction and or you're consistently having responses to that item, over and over and over, then I think, again, like I think you have to be careful and really try to decide. And sometimes it can be hard because I get that your rational mind isn't really working normally. And so this is where your real life support can be helpful, and they can give you some objectivity and be like, okay, you went into a wave. It might not be related to what you just ate, drank, put on your skin, used, whatever. Let's just use our coping mechanisms, our coping skills as best as we can, and then maybe see if this happens again. And again, unless you're having a very immediate response or you're having it consistently over time, try not to tie it, if you're just going into a wave, to what you just did before that, because it can really shrink your quality of life. I mean, it's already suffering so much, and you don't want to get down to where you're only eating 2 foods and you're never going outside, and you're scared to breathe the air, and you're scared to clean your house. Like, you don't want to do that, because again, what's mainly going on is your nervous system is in constant perpetual fight or flight. You have limbic system impairment, central sensitization syndrome, whatever you want to call it, bind. And so the overarching main problem is your nervous system has went awry. And so you're already in this constant fear response. And so again, I think if you can perpetuate that greatly by always looking for what caused this wave, and it can become an even bigger problem. So that's what I have to say about that. So if you had a very immediate reaction and the people around you could see that, then yes, you might want to consider an alternative. But if it happened, 6 hours later or the next day or 2 days later, and you're like, it must have been the toothpaste, I would challenge you to maybe just question that, or just think, maybe tell yourself, these things can happen, or waves can happen regardless of what you do. And because I don't want you to become absolutely even more paralyzed by fear than you already are. So I hope that makes sense. I want to respond to the person who said, "You do not look healed to me, or do you sound like it? You talk a mile a minute. Guess what? We don't. Y'all need to be honest with us out here. Sheesh." So I did respond to this person's comment, but I want to respond on here in case they're watching. First of all, I don't know what looking healed means. I don't know what that means. So maybe you want to expand on that. I don't know what someone who's healed looks like. I mean, I have my life together. I mean, I work, I raise my daughter, I pay my bills, I live a functional life. And so if me talking too fast means I'm not healed, I'm not sure where that comes from. I haven't heard of talking fast as a symptom of being not healed. And also, I don't think I've ever talked to this person one-on-one, and I've always been a fast talker. That's just, I'm a talker by nature. I won a talking contest once. So it has nothing to do with whether or not I'm healed. I took offense to this because, I mean, if someone challenged me in real life, it might be different, who saw me every day or maybe noticed something. That's one thing. And even then, I don't know what they would notice. But for some random person to say this, I mean, maybe this person's in a lot of pain. I'm sure they are. And I'm sorry for that. But I just encourage you not to comment on people's videos with this type of thing when you've never talked one-on-one to them and you have no idea how bad I was and how much better I'm doing now. So that's all I want to say about that. The next one is, I'm just going in order here. So someone said, I seem to react terribly to eggs for a reason. So again, what I talked about before, make sure it's the eggs. And I'm not saying that you're lying or that you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just saying that sometimes because our fear responses are so great in this scenario or in this state that we're in, that it can be, you can become afraid of everything. And so I just challenge this person. And eggs are a known allergen. So you could have, I don't know what type of reaction you're having, whether it's a nervous system reaction, whether it's, symptoms of an allergy like hives, or I don't know what that means. It's a little bit vague. But again, just be mindful. And if you can't, then try to have someone around you help to siphon it out. Because again, you can become afraid of of everything if you, I don't want to say allow yourself to, that's not the right, but if you don't, I guess, challenge some of these things or have someone help you challenge that and find out if you're truly reacting to it or if it's just your benzo brain or whatever lying to you once again. That's what I want to say about that. Let's see. So again, some of these are just comments. Okay, so someone said, is MCAS a nervous system issue or a gut issue? I'm always confused about that. I seem to react badly to certain foods and prefer avoiding them, like eggs, corn, high histamine foods, etc. The best diet for me so far is the autoimmune paleo diet, but I'm still suffering badly, so I don't know. So I've studied MCAS in depth. Not as long as I've been studying psychiatric drugs and reactions, but MCAS, I've been very heavily immersed. I've immersed myself in a lot of the literature for MCAS. What I know about it is that similar to withdrawal, similar to anything chronic really, it's usually multi-pronged or multifactorial, but the nervous system component is a huge part of MCAS. Like if you follow MCAS experts on social media, people who have healed themselves of MCAS, I don't know for sure whether I have it. I'm starting to think I don't. I don't have a diagnosis, but I thought I had it at one point. Everyone you'll see that's healed themselves of it or helped someone heal from it or people heal from it will say, if you're not addressing the nervous system part, you won't reach full recovery. So the nervous system part is a huge component of healing from MCAS or histamine issues, because low histamine diet can be helpful in the sense that there are foods like aged foods, fermented foods, vinegars, alcohol, things like soy sauce and processed meat and stuff like that are known to be high histamine, and aged cheeses. So it's best to avoid for sure the high histamine foods. Low histamine foods can be part of part of your plan from healing from MCAS. Because again, there are known foods that are high in histamine, but it's much more complex than that, because from what I've read as well, almost more so than it being a histamine issue, it's an inflammation issue. And I know inflammation gets thrown around a lot online, social media, everywhere. And you can't avoid histamine altogether. The active digestion itself releases histamine. So if you're trying to avoid histamine, that's not really what the goal that you should be striving for, because it's not possible. So from what I've seen, the best way to sort of attack MCAS, and I'm not an expert, but this is everything that I've read and have come across, and I've done a lot of research on it, is you have to address the nervous system dysfunction, which obviously we all have in this state. Go eat low histamine / anti-inflammatory. And then for some people, it can also be a liver detox pathway issue, a gut issue. So they say like you should kind of face all of these things or attack all of them, I guess, in order to heal. But I think the most important things are lowering the inflammation through diet, so anti-inflammatory / low histamine, and working on the nervous system, because when you are stressed, it releases more histamine, and which creates more inflammation, and it perpetuates the cycle. So again, if you're not addressing the stress or the nervous system part of it, it's really hard or impossible to heal from MCAS. So that's what I know about MCAS. And histamine is, people typically think about histamine as an allergic response, because if you think about, if you have seasonal allergies, hay fever, what do you do for that? You take antihistamines. So obviously there's an excess release of histamines when you're having an allergic reaction. The problem with doing allergy testing for MCAS is that, from what I know, is that it doesn't release the same immune modulators, if that's the right word, as it does in a true allergy response. So even though histamine underlies true allergies and MCAS, there's different mechanisms. Again, it's very complex. So what it boils down to, from what I know, is nervous system work. So healing from withdrawal is a big part of that, and or doing brain retraining if you're further along in your healing journey, addressing the limbic system. There's many different ways you can do that, and also focusing on low histamine anti-inflammatory diet. So that's what I know about that. Okay, so someone said diet never made any difference to my condition. I don't understand the obsession unless you're diabetic or celiac or allergic. Maybe I'm too much not American to understand this. All this diet obsession is having horrible nocebo effect, in my opinion. So that's what I was just talking about. You can become afraid of everything. So the placebo effect is basically, if you have that expectation, I take this pill and I'm going to have a positive response. They speculate that that's potentially how antidepressants work, is that there's so much expectation that this is going to heal me that it actually has positive effects. The nocebo effect, on the other hand, is the opposite, where if I eat this, take this, ingest this, I'm going to have a negative reaction. And it can be just as powerful as the placebo effect. So this is why I talked about being careful with the associations you make between waves and what you've just eaten, ingested, put on your body, or whatever. Again, there's real reactions, but there's also this nocebo effect, this heightened nervous system response that we already have, and we don't want to be perpetuating the fear more than we already have, if that makes sense. So I agree with this, unless you have a true allergy or celiac and diabetes like I do. Diet, I think, again, overall, if you're eating a healthy blood sugar balancing diet, so whole foods, really, I think that's a better way to focus than on every single individual food, because that can create obsessions, more nervous system response, and just make things worse. So that's what I have to say about that. My computer's going to die. I wasn't very smart. I didn't plug it in. So I'm only going to answer a couple more. Let's see. So I do plan to make a more detailed video on DNRS. I just haven't done it yet. Here's another one. How long did it take for you to feel normal after stopping SSRI? Well, this is a little bit of a complex answer because I had 2 withdrawals, if you're familiar with my story. I had a withdrawal from a 4-week taper off 7 years of SSRI. That was my initial withdrawal. Had no idea about withdrawal syndrome, so I was very confused for a long time, and no one told me what was wrong. And so I suffered for 2 years, and then I reinstated and took more SSRIs, antipsychotics, benzos, gabapentin, beta blockers, all those things. Had adverse reactions to most of them, and then went into a second withdrawal off of those adverse reactions, plus the 3 months of benzos I took. So I had multiple withdrawals, but so that's why it's hard for me to answer that question directly. So after stopping SSRI, if you count from when I initially stopped, and then when I actually felt like I was recovering, it was 4.5 years. I do believe it would have been shorter if I wouldn't have reinstated, and if I would have been more educated about withdrawal syndrome initially. I think I would have done things a lot differently and would have avoided, maybe not, the length of time it took me and the level of suffering after the reinstatement. I think it would have been less painful and less long if I would have known more and been more educated. That's one of the reasons I share my knowledge on this channel, because I didn't have that when I was going through my first withdrawal. So in total 4.5 years, but after my second set of drugs, when I really was educated and did things differently, and I feel like took better care of myself, it took me 21 months off of that second set of drugs. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. Just gonna try, maybe I'll just do one more. Oh, here's another one. Did you have undeniable fear and terror? Also, I never had depression or emotional blunting before. Did yours all go away? I can't feel enjoyment of any kind. I used to love fishing, camping, music, dancing. I was very outgoing. Now I'm monophobic. Oh, I think this was from the same person that sent me the first question. Did you find that some of the personality traits started returning while you were healing? Yes. I just hit a year off everything, and very recently I've been feeling glimpses of my preferences and how I would usually behave. as well as desire to connect with new people and plan a little for the future after literally not being able to comprehend anything enough to see the point in planning. No logical sense in my brain. It seems like me is really trying to come back and it's fleeting, but I'm hoping it's a positive sign. Sorry you're dealing with some scary lab results. That's unrelated to this. Feel free to email if you want any feedback on anything. Okay, so the answer is unequivocally yes. Absolutely. When I felt like I was turning a corner, that was when I noticed old interests. Like it's like my brain suddenly could think about normal things a little bit again rather than always focusing on symptoms. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about normal things again. And my sense of humor is coming back. And mom would make comments like, it was like the old me. And it was very almost like a spiritual experience. It felt profound because I was so disconnected from myself for so long through the withdrawal, and I think on the drugs too, because they blunt so much. I was unable to cry and feel the wide range of human emotions, and I've always been an emotional person, and they made me numb. And then the opposite happened when I came off. I couldn't handle anything and everything was over the top. So absolutely, I think that's a great sign of healing. Absolutely. And that's typically what happens. The symptoms start to kind of wear off, and everybody's journey is slightly different, but in general, the symptoms start to kind of fall off, and then your old self starts to shine through, and it can be very subtle at first or very short-lived, and then it gets longer and stronger over time. So that's very encouraging. So keep going. That's very promising. So I need to cut this video off. My phone or my computer is about to die, so we're planning on my end. Hopefully that answers some of your questions, and I think I'm going to do a live Q&A so people can hop on. I'll give enough advance notice, and then you can ask your questions in real time. That might be helpful. Let me know if that'd be helpful. I did a poll, and it was overwhelmingly yes to a Q&A, so I'll look into setting that up and setting a time to do that. But thank you for all your questions and comments, and hopefully this answered some of them. And take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.